Supreme Chancellor Obi-Wan Kenobi by Stone Freak. Chapter 63. Volkara versus Palpatine. Volkara moves around the halls of healing. She talks with the other doctors and healers, helps with a few patients, and moves through her daily routine. She looks at the clock and notes that it's about an hour before the council representatives will come by the halls to get an update on Master Kenobi's condition. She hums a low note to herself, going over his file and current status and preparation. Most of his values look good. His lung is regenerating its tissue, and the wound is mostly healed. He's out of the danger zone. She smiles to herself in relief. It was touch and go at the start and during and after the operation, but the odds improved dramatically once he was submerged in Bacta. And now, well, he's gaining strength every day. Volkara! The sound of a voice calling her name makes her look up from her datapad and turn around to face the direction the sound came from. On the other end of the hall, she sees a very familiar, a much-missed figure. Her smile widens. Rig! Volkara waits where she is as Rig comes even closer, and once she's almost there, Volkara puts the datapad down on a nearby table. Rig's arms slide around Volkara's shoulders as Volkara's slide around Rig's waist. Forehead to forehead, eyes closed, noses nestled together, breathing the same air. Force presences brushing against each other. Reunited at last. Volkara feels a small part of herself relaxing in a way it only ever does when they're both safe in the haven that is the temple, the one place where the war cannot take them. I missed you, Rig breathes out low and gentle. I've missed you too, Volkara answers, thanking the Force that they've met again. Every time either of them leave the temple for missions, Volkara is well aware that it may be the last time they ever see each other, while she accepts the inevitability of death, and the fact that it can happen at any time. She's also grateful for being given more time. They draw back, eyes meeting, staring. Volkara takes one hand from Rig's waist and presses it against her cheek instead. They smile at each other, and Rig leans into the touch just briefly. Do you have time to meet with me, or are you too busy? Rig asks as they move apart. I have about an hour, Volkara says with a small laugh. An hour is not much before duty calls again, but it is more than nothing, and they will take what they can get, duty coming before anything else, as is the way of the Jedi. Rig and Volkara head towards Master Kenobi's room. The council members should be there soon, and it wouldn't do to be late. As they step into the room, they find that Master Yoda, Mace, Plo, and Fisto are already waiting for them. Volkara blinks in surprise and looks at the time on her datapad. Early are we, Master T, Dr. Lima? Late you are not, Master Yoda says with an impish smile, his ears wiggling. His good mood makes Volkara smile. Perhaps Master Yoda can tell that Master Kenobi is stronger. He's looked so old lately. It's good to see him smile and have energy again. The war has taken its toll on him as much as all the Jedi, perhaps more so than others due to his advanced age. That is a thought. Volkara doesn't actually know how old is typical for Master Yoda's species, but she cannot do anything other than presume that he's reached old age. He talks about being old enough for that to be true. Would you be willing to start early, since we're already here, or do you want the last few minutes to prepare? Dear Mace, ever considerate. Volkara smiles at him. I prepared earlier. We can start now. She heads over to the side of the Bacta tank. Would it be alright if I stay? Rig says, looking at the gathered masters. Stay away, Dr. Nima. Up to speed. You should be. Master Yoda says and leans back in his hover chair. Thank you, Master. Rig says and looks to Volkara, alert and clearly interested to hear more about Master Kenobi's condition. Master Yoda has some good points. As the other head healer of the Halls of Healing, it's good if Rig knows the details of Master Kenobi's case. If Volkara needs to leave the halls, it's best if another knows what has to be done and how far along in the healing process he is. She brings up a hollow image of a human male. Master Kenobi shielded himself and those closest to him with the Force, just before the explosion struck. This is clear since they were close enough to the epicenter of the blast that if he hadn't done so, there would be far more damage to his lungs and the hollow organs of his gastrointestinal tract. She points at the appropriate points on the hollow image. However, his eardrums still ruptured.
They're healing well, but at the time of explosion, it seems he lost his hearing. Luckily, this is unlikely to remain a problem, and was merely a symptom of the rupture.
She pauses for a bit, debating whether or not to discuss the other patients as well.
The other patients all suffered from ruptured eardrums as well, though the symptoms varied among them. Boyle, the clone trooper we found with Master Kenobi, for example, suffered both fluid discharge as well as hearing loss.
She glances up to see her audience nod in understanding. Good. Her lip would twitch slightly as she looks down on her datapad. Moving her finger across the screen, she looks over the catalogue of Master Kenobi's injuries and nods to herself slightly. Time to discuss the big one.
The Durasteel rebar pierced Master Kenobi straight through the chest, collapsing his lung. We were lucky that it also mostly stemmed the blood flow as well, as did a good job of keeping air from leaking into the chest cavity. The operation to remove the rod, as well as repair the lung and his chest, went well, and he was soon after that submerged in Bacta. I wasn't sure at first if he would live or not, as his presence in the Force wavered heavily the first hours and days after the operation. However, he's been recovering well, and all his vitals are strong.
She smiles, relieved.
Master Kenobi will, I believe, make a full recovery. He is still weak, but we should be able to remove him from the Bacta tank in about a week. While he has been mostly sleeping since the operation, he's been regaining strength steadily and has been conscious, if not entirely lucid as well. All in all, his prognosis looks very good.
She can feel the force lighten in the room as the other people in the room relax and are cheered by the good prognosis. She hands the datapad to Rick to let her look more closely at the numbers and information rather than rely entirely on Volcara's verbal report. Always the diligent researcher.
Good news this is, Master Chief,
Master Yoda says, leaning forward into his upper chair.
Indeed, it's good to hear that he will recover. We've been worried, all of us.
Mace rubs his chin. Young Skywalker having been the most worried of all, Volcara is willing to bet. She's heard rumors of his fleet being sent to return to the temple ahead of time, but she's not sure of the validity of it. It's rather unimportant, all things considered.
That is all we needed to know, isn't it, Master Yoda?
Master Fisto looks at the old master, hands clasped behind his back.
So it is, Master Fisto. Determine what to tell the Senate and the troops, we must.
The group of council members start heading towards the door in better spirits than they arrived.
Beep, 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 beep.
The Bacta tank starts screeching suddenly before they can clear the room. Volcara feels like her stomach drops to her toes. She hurries to the datapad connected to the Bacta tank and furiously scans the warning text. Values dropping, heart rate dropping, respiratory system struggling.
By the Force, why?
She finds herself whispering. There's no reason for this to be happening. Master Kenobi shouldn't be crashing. He's been steadily improving, and there's nothing that could have caused a sudden collapse.
Volcara, what's happening?
Mace calls out. She looks up, eyes wild, and finds herself strangely out of breath as she answers.
He's dying. There's no reason. I don't understand. His values are just dropping. All of a sudden, he's just rapidly dying.
Riggs' shoulder presses against her own as she comes closer to look at the datapad, trying to make sense of the situation.
What in all the deep seas of mankind am I?
She mumbles as they read over the text and information. For a brief instant, Volcara feels something. Something dark. Something wrong. She throws herself against the Bacta tank, pressing her palms and her forehead against the glass and searching for Kenobi's spirit with her own. The force rises around her, twisting and whipping like an angry gale when she feels it. The darkness of one so corrupt she can nearly believe they still inhabit living flesh. And they must still live, or else their presence could not... The presence is trying to drain Master Kenobi's life force out of his weakened body. No! Heedless of the danger, she throws herself into the fight, pitting the strength of her mind and spirit against that of the presence. She feels hatred. A pit of hatred so deep it shakes her to her very bones, and cold sweat breaks out on her skin. Wash over her, and the presence seems to snarl at her.
Stay out of this, Jedi, and I will let you live.
No!
There's no death. There is the Force. Isn't that what you Jedi say? Why would you fight his end if you Jedi accept death as something natural and necessary? Stop fighting me, woman, and I will not rip your mind asunder.
She shivers at the malice in those words, but her resolve remains firm. She will not falter.
Death is as natural as life. You cannot have one without the other. But this is not his time. Accepting death as a natural part of the order of the galaxy does not mean to stand idly by and allow murder.
The presence lashes out at her, and Vokara's breathing nearly stops. She gasps for breath, shallow and hurting as the other mind presses against her. The strength of this mind, the putrid hatred of this presence, the utter decay and dark of it teaches her a very important fact. She is facing the Sith Master, and it is not Dooku. She has felt Dooku's presence before many times, and this is not it. If they have ever wondered if Dooku is the Sith Master or not, she can now confidently say that he is not. Her arms shake from how hard she presses her hands against the glass. Her head aches with the pressure of this battle. Vokara knows she is weaker than the Sith Lord, and she is weaker by far. In a one-against-one battle, she is hopelessly outmatched. She cannot even begin to compete. However, Vokara is not a Sith. She is not alone. She is not a maleficent and hateful monster alone in this wide galaxy apart from an apprentice she cannot hope to trust. The way of the Sith is betrayal. But Vokara is not a Sith. She feels beloved Rig's body pressing close, her arms wrapping around Vokara, one hand above her heart and the other on her hip, just as her mind joins Vokara's and lends her its strength. Dear Mace's hand tangles their fingers together and squeezes, just as his powerful mind sluts in next to Rig, bolstering Vokara with its incredible strength. Vokara pushes back against the Sith Lord. She gains ground. She rips its talons out of her mind and breathes freely again. Master Yoda's clawed hand gently touches her knee, and his mind, old and wise, strong as the ancient trees of Handu, and as deep-reaching as their roots, wraps around them a shield against the dark. Plo's hand closes around her wrist, and his mind joins the others, fist still close behind him, hand nestled next to his. One heartbeat. 2. Vokara Che is a Jedi. She is not alone. She has love, friendship, family, and community. She has people who will guide her when she falters, who will reach out to her and help her back to her feet if she falls. Vokara Che is not strong enough to face the Sith Lord alone, but she doesn't have to be. She rips the Sith Lord's talons out of Master Kenobi's spirit and pushes it away as far as she can with the combined strength of all their minds. It fades with a screech so hateful and deep she shuddered anew. It's gone. United, they drove it away. She turns the strength of their minds to Kenobi instead and feels the wounds in his spirit. Together they heal them, gently, carefully, before they start to move apart from each other. She feels Master Yoda seems to almost set up a shield around Master Kenobi's spirit before she draws away fully. She comes back to her physical self, panting, her legs weak and most of her weight entirely in Rig's arms.
Well, you did, Vokara,
Master Yoda says.
Fortunate for your presence here at this time, and quick reactions we all are. Rest now, you should. Discuss this incident later we will. Stand guard here, the rest of us will.
I will take her to our rooms, Master Yoda, Rig says, voice soft. Vokara leans back heavily in her embrace.
Thank you, Rig,
Mace says, his voice soft and far away sounding, as if there were a million things on his mind. He squeezes Vokara's hand one last time as their eyes meet before Rig gently leads her out of Master Kenobi's room. Vokara presses the side of her face against Rig's, their breaths mingling, and allows herself to be swept away from the halls of healing. Palpatine flies backwards from the psychic attack, his hand leaving his forehead and his head is smashing against the floor. Foiled at every turn! He will tear the Jedi asunder, and she, the Jedi healer who fought him, will suffer at his hand. Her death will not be easy. He saw her mind. He saw her defiance. Defiance from a Twi'lek! A female Twi'lek! Perhaps he will make her into what she should be, no more than a pretty thing to look at and enjoy, powerless and in chains. Blood trickles from his nose. The strain of the ritual must have caused a blood vessel to burst, and Palpatine brushes it away with his hand his teeth grinding together. He ignores the incessant throbbing in his head. The strain of the ritual should have been worth it, but now, wasted time and effort, and the focus object is ruined, only good for one attempt.
All these pesky flies, all these
Women and non-humans getting in his way, disrupting his plans. So far beneath him, they should be nary a speck on the horizon, and yet they rise up and disrupt a plan that has moved smoothly for decades. He moves to a mirror and looks to ensure that the strain hasn't caused any decay to his appearance. An unexplainable disfigurement is the last thing he needs right now. Aside from the blood, he still looks like a harmless old man. Good. He wipes more blood from his nose and draws a deep breath, his rage coiling inside him. The further the Jedi delay the inevitable, the worse their end will be. Order 66 will commence. The temple will burn. Younglings first, as the adults watch. The women will fall last. The Twi'lek healer and Kenobi, forced to watch their entire people perish and one of their own turn against them again. Just like Dooku, but so much worse. Dooku might have betrayed him, but he too will fall. Palpatine will make sure everyone gets just what they deserve.